by your faith. Oh, behold, somehow reach down inside and you find a love that's been there all the time. Somehow, right now, somebody's broken and sad. They need you to give what you have right now. Realize, open your eyes. Realize, open your eyes. Behold, the kingdom of God is within you. Not just a place to get into someday far away. Behold, it's something that you can tap into, a strength that will help you to get through each day by your faith. Oh, behold. Oh, behold. Oh, behold. How'd you do? Just sing along? You want to sing along with me on this one? Yeah. Thank you. I am grateful, grateful for this day, for the love we share, the life we made, and I give thanks for all the many ways that the love of God appears. Come on out. I am grateful, grateful for this day, for the love we share, the life we make, and I give thanks for all the many ways that the love of God appears. I am grateful, grateful for this day, for the love we share, the life we make, and I give thanks for all the many ways that the love of God appears. I am grateful, grateful for this day, for the love we share, the life we make, and I give thanks for all the many ways that the love of God appears. Yes, the love of God is here. So it is.
Right. All right, all right. Good afternoon, everyone. Good to see you. Welcome to Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta. My name is David Alexander. My pronouns are he and his. I want to welcome you into this space. Welcome everybody watching online on YouTube and Facebook Live. We're grateful that you're here. If you're here for the first time or visiting us today, we're grateful that you're here. We actually have some visitors from Portland, Oregon here. Old Greg, good to see you. Happy birthday, Janet. Okay, caught you in mid-sip there. We're grateful for everyone who's here today. Practitioners available for prayer after the service. If you're visiting or new, just wave your hand and let us know after the service. We'd love to greet you and get to know you better. We got food and fellowship happening down at the end of the hall, and we'll talk more about that in just a little bit. We're starting a new series today. So this is beginning of the month. We have Flames of Faith, you'll see in just a moment. And we always follow, or we try to follow, the Science of Mind magazine. So we're on the April issue. You got to take your March and you got to flip it over the other way. It works like that. Gentleness is the theme of the month. We're going to be looking at what that means and breaking that down. So I'm going to kick that off today. Reverend Gene will be doing part 2 next week and all of that. So welcome again. We're glad that you're here. Did I get everything that's supposed to happen? The affirmation. I didn't get quite everything. Affirmation. Okay, here's today's affirmation that we'll use throughout the month. I'll say it once and then ask you to repeat it after me. Deep within me is a power and a presence like no other. Deep within me is grace, wisdom, and love. Deep within me is all that I need in this moment. Today I call forth this presence and stand in the midst of its giant gentleness, knowing that it is sufficient for all of my needs. So it is. So take a deep breath. I will say one line and then invite you to say it after me, and then we'll do it a third time and do it all together. Deep within me is a power and presence like no other. Deep within me is grace, wisdom, and love. Deep within me is all that I need for this moment, in this moment. Today, I call forth this presence and stand in the midst of its giant gentleness, knowing that it is sufficient for all of my needs. And so it is. Let's take a deep breath. One more time as we allow it to really settle into our being today. Let's say it together with one voice. Deep within me is a power and presence like no other. Deep within me is a grace, wisdom, and love. Deep within me is all that I need in this moment. Today, I call forth this presence and stand in the midst of its giant gentleness. Today, knowing that it is sufficient for all of my needs. And so it is. And so it is. Giant gentleness. We're going to launch that today and explore it throughout the month. Let's welcome Reverend Jean Bell as she tells us all the announcements that are going on here at SLCA.
Greetings, everyone. Happy spring. All right. Again, my name is Reverend Jean Bell. My pronouns are she and her, and I serve as the associate minister here today. We have so many great opportunities to connect, grow, serve, and give at SLCA. And for more information about today's announcements and other opportunities, please scan the QR code found on your monitor. Are you ready to increase your abundance and prosperity? Everybody should be saying, yeah. It isn't too late to join this SLCA ministers and practitioners in the month of April for a daily spiritual practice of spiritual mind treatment as we become aware of the flow of good that is surrounding us today. We invite you to sign up today using the QR code as we prepare to be in joyous expectancy of our ever-flowing good and open to the abundant nature of the universe. So, your presence is requested next Sunday for our annual town hall meeting. We will have an important town hall meeting after service during our social hour, April the 14th. Please plan to attend. Now, after the town hall meeting, I want you all to join Ian Folker next Sunday as he guides us through the power of scripting. Ian wants us to know that we can create the life that we desire through the power of you and your divine purpose. You deserve the world and beyond. All right, I want to thank all of you for joining us today, and I look forward to visiting with you in the fellowship hall with food and, of course, fellowship.
Thank you, Reverend Jean. This song is a great reminder. Just the words they speak. I will be gentle with myself. Just invite you to relax. Let the song wash over you. I will be gentle with myself. I will be gentle with myself. And I will hold myself like a newborn baby child. I will be gentle with myself. I will be gentle with myself. And I will hold myself like a newborn baby child. gentle with myself. I will be gentle with myself. And I will hold myself like a newborn baby child. One more time. I will be gentle with myself. I will be gentle with myself. And I will hold myself like a newborn baby child. And I will only go as fast as the slowest part of me feels safe to go. I will only go as fast as the slowest part of me feels safe to go. I will be tender with my heart. I will be tender with my heart. And I will hold my heart like a newborn baby child. I will be tender with my heart. I will be tender with my heart. And I will hold my heart like a newborn baby child. And I will only go as fast as the slowest part of me feels safe to go. I will only go as fast as the slowest part of me feels safe to go. I will be easy on myself. I will be easy on myself. And I will love myself like a newborn baby child. As the slowest part of me feels safe to go. I will only go as fast as the slowest part of me feels safe to go. I am gentle with myself. I'm gentle with myself. And I hold myself like a newborn baby child. And I rock myself like a newborn baby child. And I love myself like a newborn baby child. As we move towards prayer, we have one more song to share. Open your mind, unfold your heart, relax your senses. Amen. Feel every part. You ain't got a thing to fear. Looks like love is growing here. So take your guard and let it down. Go deeper still until you come unwound. Unbound. Breathe every breath. Release your cringe. Love without waiting, without waiting. Slowly unhinge. nothing to fear. Looks like love is growing here. So take your guard and let it down. Go deeper still until you come unwound, unbound.
What a beautiful day. Spring is springing, and the freshness and the newness of life is about us. And I look at this and I know that this is the work of the one who is the creator of all, from flowers, mountains, rocks, oceans, and me, and everything that has movement and being and sentience. There's just one creator, one source, many names, but if we look, we can see the oneness in the descriptors and the names. And knowing this, I know that I can never be separated, that I am one with the one. It is my health, it is my joy, my peace, it is my harmony, it is the rhythm of my life. It is the dance that I enjoy. It is the love that I am. And this being, this energy, this power source is all that there is. There is nothing against it. And all, right down to the mountains and the rocks, will cry out to acknowledge its power and its glory and its beauty and its wonder. And knowing this, I have no worry. I can take my energy and just love and be, correct erroneous thought, because that's all that it is when I forget. And I have so many experiences and people and memories and just my beingness that says, no, this is something that has come for you to allow the healing. It has shown up to be healed. Do you want to be healed? And yes, I embrace it, and I know that even in going through it, I am not alone. I am so grateful for this. I'm grateful for just knowing that I can be who I am, no apology, no explanation, just be. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for this place, this teaching, everyone along the way. I'm grateful for life in general, for friends and for family and for the practitioners and the dancers and the musicians and everyone who comes together to make these Sundays and to make this teaching an embodiment, because we have to live it and be it. Live it and be it to the best, and our best keeps getting better and better as we evolve and as we gain wisdom, and I am glad for the wisdom of long life. Knowing this, I just release these words, knowing that it is already done, it has already been put into motion, and that Spirit says yes to the highest good. And together we can affirm this by saying, and so it is.
You can't stop waiting for love to find you. Look inside your heart. Love's already who you are. So lift up your voice. Let it be heard. Tell me your story, tell it to me. don't leave out a word. 'Cause I think I have been there too. I'm a seeker just like you. You ain't got a thing to fear. Looks like love is growing here. So take your guard and let it down. Go deeper still until you come unwound, unbound.
Lighting the flames of faith. A call to service. We perform this ceremony to promote the universal consciousness of life, which acknowledges that all peoples, all faiths, all sentient beings come from the one great universal presence which we call Spirit. Fundamental to this truth is the unifying nature of all religious thought and experience, which we honor here today. We recognize the candle for the Tao, honoring the universal path of harmony and equilibrium, the natural way. We recognize the candle for the shamanic traditions, honoring the beliefs and practices of all indigenous people, the way of the primal spirituality. We recognize the candle for Hinduism, honoring the path of knowledge, action, and devotion. We recognize the candle for Judaism, honoring the ethical path of living by sacred law. We recognize the candle for all forms of Buddhism, honoring the Four Noble Truths and the path of compassion. We recognize the candle for all forms of Christianity, honoring the Christ consciousness as the path of love. We recognize the candle for all forms of Islam, honoring the path of submission to the will of God as the highest calling. We recognize the candle for the universalistic religion of Baha'i, honoring the path of unity and peace. We recognize the candle for all forms of New Thought, honoring the metaphysical path of mental healing through the practice of universal spiritual principles. As we recognize the healing candle, please put silently in the light the name of anyone you wish to experience the healing flame of God's eternal love.
When I was a girl each week, Sunday we would go to church, listening to my daddy preach. We would, okay, Robert, oh, there we are. Pardon me, what? When I was a girl each week, Sunday we would go to church, listen to my mama preach. How about that? She would speak the holy word, consecrating holy bread. Everyone would kneel and bow. Today the only difference is everything is holy now. Everything's holy now. When I was in Sunday school, we would learn about the time Moses split the sea in two. Jesus made the water wine. I remember feeling sad. Miracles don't happen still, but now I can't keep track, 'cause everything's a miracle. Everything's a miracle. Everything's holy now. Everything is 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 holy now. And wine from water is not so small. An even better magic trick is that there's anything here at all. And oh, the challenging thing becomes not to look for miracles, but finding where there isn't one. When holy water was rare at best, I could barely read my fingertips. Now I have to hold my breath, like I'm drowning in a sea of it. There used to be a world out there, heaven's second rate hand me down. Now I'm walking in a reverent air, 'cause everything is holy now. Everything's holy now. Everything is holy now. Everything is holy now. Everything is holy now. Everything's holy now. Everything is holy now. Everything is holy now. Everything is holy now. And wine from water is not so small. An even better magic trick is that there's anything here at all. So the challenging thing becomes not to look for miracles, but finding where there isn't one. This morning outside I stood, I saw a red-winged bird shining like a burning bush, singing like a scripture verse. Made me wanna bow my head, and I remember when the church let out. Today the only difference is everything is holy now. Everything's holy now. Everything's holy now. Everything is holy now. Everything is holy now. Everything's holy now. Everything is holy now. Holy now. Everything holy now. Everything is holy now. Holy now. Oh, holy now. Thank you.
Nicely done. Beautiful. Penelope, let's give her some more love. All right, good afternoon again. Welcome, glad you're here. Good to see you. It's a good day to be together, yes? Yes, yes, yes. All right, anybody checking scores yet? Women's basketball? Okay. No. I know we got some people at home watching it, I'm sure. Running 2 screens at the same time, watching us online. Amen. Right? They're here with us. They're checking in like this. I'm here, Rev. I'm checking in on Facebook. It's been an exciting season with the basketball, both men's and women's tournament. So we're going to look at giant gentleness today. What an interesting concept and interesting theme to go into this month. And as we do, the magazine, all the articles in it are focused on this topic. And, you know, gentleness is not about meekness, right? Gentleness is actually a very powerful thing that we get to cultivate in ourselves and bring into the world. And giant gentleness opens us up to who we really are, who we say we want to be, right? That everything is holy now. So as we launch this today, let's look at some principles and practices that we're going to use for today. The spiritual principle today is the principle of belonging. We're going to look at the principle of belonging. We have, you know, on our t-shirts and all around our branding, you belong, this idea that you belong. It's a central theme to who we are as a spiritual community. And so let's talk about the principle of belonging a little bit and bring that into our conscious awareness. The spiritual law is the law of that there is a divine pattern. And the law of divine pattern is, for me, kind of a nuanced idea on the idea that everything is holy or calling. You know, we often say that it's akin to the idea that everything is working for our good. But that's slightly different than saying, well, everything is good, right? I don't know about you, but I don't like leading with that idea that even though I think there's spiritual wisdom in the idea of perspective of goodness and wholeness to be found in everything, but I don't like leading with that when I'm teaching because I often find that people have experienced pain. People have experienced trauma. Or we're looking at the news right now and we're saying, well, but you know, if you're saying everything's good, oh yeah, it's just a matter of perspective. And right, that's a very privileged position to take. If we can be honest with ourselves about that for just a minute, right? You know, there's pain, great pain happening in the world. Great pain happening in our own communities, maybe in families in this community. We can certainly look at things like, you know, what's happening in the Middle East and Gaza. And I think it can sometimes appear flippant to say, but God is all there is and it's all good. But I do think it's true to say that there is a spiritual pattern in the universe, and that we are to move and align ourselves in such a way that we are in alignment with that divine pattern, and that sometimes there are things that are happening in the world that is not in alignment with that pattern, and that when things are not in alignment with that pattern, we see chaos and we see pain and we see trauma. Is that fair to say? You with me on that? All right, so a divine pattern, the spiritual law of divine pattern is kind of the backdrop of today, and the spiritual practice of compassion. That as we're learning about the principle of belonging, as we're learning about the divine patterns that are in the universe and how to move ourselves in alignment with that, that we have to practice self-compassion. We have to practice compassion with each other, and that begins with ourselves. That will be a theme throughout this series. So each week we're going to expand our awareness of gentleness, starting, of course, with ourselves, acknowledging how we can allow the moment to be for our highest and best. Again, leaning into that idea of that there's a pattern here. There's a pattern that wants to emerge in your life, and that pattern is one of wholeness and perfection and beauty and love, prosperity, health, etc. Right? That we can breathe gentleness into our communities, into our politics, into our activities, into all of the things that we're doing as collective humanity. And finally, celebrate the moments of embodying that giant spirit of compassion and gentleness in the world. So giant gentleness is this kind of a pairing of interesting words, right? What does it mean to be giant? What does it mean to be gentle? What does it mean to be big for the moment? And what does it mean to be receiving, accepting, soft? And are those words the things that it means? Is gentleness simply passive and softness, or is there something about strength and power that is inside of gentleness, right? I don't know about you, but when I look out into the world, I could say, yeah, we could use some gentleness right now, right? Because often we're trained in our upbringing and our socialization about how to meet the world, that there are big things happening, that there are, big things unfolding, that the world is a fill in the blank, but as a scary place or a dynamic place or a dangerous place or whatever, and you have to be big enough for the moment, right? Boys are taught to be men, and women are taught to be strong, and we're all taught to be strong and big for the moment, to rise up to the occasion, to be man enough, or to be this enough or that enough, right? And I don't know about you, but it seems like there is, as the injustices sort of rage on around us. It's, there's this narrative of that the fight is more critical and more necessary and more urgent than it has ever been before. You ever get that tone? You hear that tone, right? And I'm a social justice guy, right? I'm a human rights and activist, person. And sometimes I get, worn out by this narrative of we got to fight harder this time. And yet there are things, right? Last week it was Easter. It was the end of the month. It was Transgender Day of Visibility, and it was also Easter. And so there was, there was some celebrating that we were doing here as a community because the 20-some-odd anti-LGBT and mostly anti-trans bills that were moving through the Georgia House and Senate, all of them failed. Right, and so I was celebrating, which was not the case in some of the states around us, and so there was a big celebration of that. But at the same time, right, it was the last day of Women's History Month, and at the same time, I didn't mention, and bears mentioning now, because you don't need a month to celebrate in order to talk about something. Amen, somebody. That women's rights are still under attack, and that now if you live in Florida or Georgia or Louisiana, right, you have to go several states just to get adequate health care, right? Reproductive health care, and this, and so there's a whole ban of activity happening in the southern states that is very oppressive to women's rights and reproductive health care. Voting rights and democracy is on the line, and we've got war breaking out, and the environment. They asked me, the April issue, I write an article on environmentalism and climate change and all of that. And, it's kind of hard to capture all that is significant about what we need to address from a place of consciousness, but also from a place of tangibility about the climate in 1,200 words or less, right? Right? It's like, there are books and books and books and books about this, and they're like, could you do it, like 3,000 words or something. But we make an attempt in this month's issue. And so all of these things are happening. All of these things are unfolding. And sometimes the idea is that, we need to be big and strong and defiant for these things. And I think that that's right in many ways. But if we don't balance that with something else, if we don't find the yang to that yin or that yin to that yang, right? Then where does that energy take us? And it turns out that's not so much a theoretical question right now, because we can look at the world as stage right now, and we can see what happens when the response, out of a ethical right to defend oneself and to be strong in the midst of an attack, how if that's not balanced with a peace and a gentleness, how quickly it can get out of hand. Yes? I'm seeing the absolute devastation of Gaza, and it is out of this need to be strong and to be big to the moment and not back down, and yet it is a crushing position to take that is creating genocide, right? So how do we right? And by the way, my only position on the whole thing is, right, ceasefire, immediate ceasefire, release all the hostages, like this, because you see how, and it's not about a position of anything other than when these energies get out of balance, when we can get so defiant that we crush even ourselves in the midst of our defiance, right? You see that? Have you ever gotten so mad about something? Right? That you have, you're on the verge of destroying everything about what you want to take a stand on. Right? The relationship is going to end, like everything is, you're going to lose it all, but you're right. Right? Like, so we have to find that place to balance those energies, because no matter how big we feel like we need to be for that moment, it's like, oh, but there's something else. Right? There's another way to be. There's gentleness that needs to come in here, right? So we can look onto the world of things and find ourselves very easily, I don't know about you, but I find myself very easily overwhelmed with parts of our collective self that are suffering in pain, and the pains of war and disenfranchisement, displacement and hunger and isolation, and all the things that are reverberating through our political discourse. And I come to the question, like, how do I get big enough for this? Right? You ever had that question? Like, how do I hold a space? Because it feels like, whatever bucket I have to put everything in, the bucket's inadequate. Right? There's more stuff coming. There's more onslaught of news. There's more, like I have this. Your consciousness is a bucket. That's a weird, let's go with it and see what happens. Right? You have this container called your consciousness. I don't know where I'm going. This is not in the notes. Right? But your consciousness is this container, and you're receiving, and you're going, okay, I got a place for that. Okay, okay, war and devastation. Okay, I sort of got a place for that, right? This news happened. Oh, I got a place for that. Oh, there's a bridge collapse. I got a place for that. Okay, that's new. But I got a place that I can put that. And then, oh, look, somebody's got new puppies. That's wonderful. I got a place for that, right? You have this place to put everything. But then there's more, right? There's always more. And it's like, well, now I don't have a place to put that. I need a bigger bucket. I need to expand. And that's what spiritual practice is. It's expanding our consciousness, it's expanding the bucket, it's expanding the space so that now I can hold more things. And I can hold things in contradiction, and I can hold things in grace, and I can hold things that I don't understand. Because when we're younger, both physiologically, but also just mentally, spiritually, emotionally, right? When you have a younger consciousness, which is not about your chronological age, but when you're younger in your conscious awareness and understanding of who you are spiritually, right? Everything in your bucket has to agree with everything else. Right? Right? Everything's got to match in the bucket. Everything's got to complement everything else in the bucket. You all got to get along. Right? You can't have no beta fish in the bucket. Right? Because they'll attack everything else. No, we can't have that. Don't belong here in the bucket. Everything agrees with everything else in this bucket. But as you get older, you say, oh, well, now I gotta put things in the bucket that don't agree with other things. And they're disharmonious somehow. They're incongruent, and they're so on and so forth. And so we're learning how to expand that. How do I get big enough for this? And so while on the one hand, we know that, we're at choice on how to interpret and, name the world that we see and use our consciousness and understand our perspectives. And I think that that's really valuable, right? I think it's also imperative that we resist the temptation to reinterpret everything such that we see everything in a more positive light. Like, well, it's just rose-colored glasses, it's just all good, it's all, no matter what it is. It's like, well, I don't understand that, I don't have a place for it in my bucket, but I'm just gonna see it with this lens. Right? Sometimes I want to resist the temptation to do that, even though that's, kind of a spiritual practice. And the reason for that is this, because sometimes we choose the comfortable over the necessary. Yeah? Have you ever chosen comfortable over necessary? Sure you have, right? You're usually you're usually sitting in your car, looking out the window at a menu. Because there ain't a drive-through that I know that will give you what's necessary. They're selling what's comfortable, baby. Right? We all do. We all make choices every day that are choosing the comfortable over the necessary. And what I mean by necessary is there is a longing and a need that are part of our soul's urging. There's a universal something, right, which has to do with belonging, and we're going to get to some other ones in just a minute, that are kind of these urgent needs of the soul. And those things have to be addressed no matter what. No matter what's happening, no matter what's not happening, no matter who you're with or who you're not with, no matter how much money you have or don't have, no matter what the circumstances are. Like do you sense that? That there's something inside of you that has to get addressed. That's what I mean by the necessary. It's the thing that must get addressed. Now you can address it in healthy ways or unhealthy ways. You can address it in comforting ways and discomforting ways, right? You can address it with the help of spiritual community or without, right? All of those, you have choice there, but they must get addressed. The question is how, right? And what happens when these fundamental needs go unaddressed? We find ourselves in this really out of balance place in humanity. Ernest Holmes, in one of his radio addresses, Ernest Holmes, the founder of our philosophy here, The Science of Mind, really cool guy. If you don't know him, Google him, check him out. And he gave a radio address. He had a weekly radio show called You Can Change Your Life in the 30s and 40s. And I think in the 1949, actually, I have it here in my notes, 1949 radio address, that particular year, it was on every week, but one of the addresses in that particular year, he said this. He said, humanity's greatest needs are these three things: to feel needed, wanted, and loved. Now, he kind of cheated. He threw three all into one. Right? Three needs. Typical Ernest Holmes. Adds more in there. But he said, to feel needed, wanted, and loved. To feel the need that we belong to the universe in which we live. And to have an object or objects upon which to lavish our affection, which I kind of named as the, contribution, right? The need to contribute to something, meaning to know that we have a valuable gift to give, whether that's to our partner or to our community or to our dog or to, right? But that you have something in you that is of value to share, right? So to feel needed, wanted, and loved, right? That's receiving in. To belong, which is contextual to the universe in which you live. And then out of that, you've got something to give. So there's kind of this really beautiful yin and yang flow happening. To be wanted, needed, and loved, that's receiving, that you belong contextually, you make sense in your placement in the universe. And then out of that, out of the marriage of those two things, then you have something to give. Everybody with me? He says, now, it is now known that the most unhappiness comes from a sense of being rejected, of not being wanted, needed, and loved. And it's also known that a large percentage of our physical troubles come as a direct result of emotional congestion that follows in the wake of feeling that we don't belong to life. We call these things regressions, inner conflicts, frustrations. Sometimes we identify them as inferiority or superiority complexes. All of these terms really refer back to our three fundamental positions. That we are so constituted by this thing called life that we want to love and be loved. We want to sing and dance. We want to be glad. We want to be friends, and we want to have friends. And what Ernest Holmes and what the movement of New Thought offers us is the notion and spiritual truth that there is a presence inside of us that can guide us in regards to these three needs, right? And that's what I'm going to call that deep, giant gentleness this month. There's that something within you that knows this and that will guide you through prayer and contemplation and through divine right action and through everything else that we call spiritual practice to meeting these needs. If we develop the capacity to listen, to follow, to surrender, to imagine through visioning, right? To forgive, to release, right? All the spiritual practices come into play. And we got time this month. We'll unpack some of that a little bit more, but just for now, we're just kind of starting out here, that there is something within inside of us that knows what these needs are, and it knows how to fulfill these needs. This is a thread that kind of runs through his teaching. And he has this great line in the Science Mind textbook that is this, and I love this particularly because of the last line. I've, for years, called it the Sean Connery line. That seems strange, doesn't it? Because when I read it, I go, only Sean Connery could deliver this line. I'll show you what it is in just a moment. It says this. It says, every man, let's say every person stands in the shadow of a mighty mind, a pure intelligence, and a divine givingness. And then this, not alone unto the great comes the soft tread of the unseen guest. I mean, am I right? Am I right? It's just like, he kind of drops that in there. You read the rest of the text, and it's just like, why is this sentence here? It's just kind of dropped in, and I think, I don't know. He's older than Sean Connery, so I don't know how that works. But if I were making a movie, that line would be, right? The camera would pan, and he'd, not alone unto the... Yeah, it's great. So every person stands in the shadow of a mighty mind, a pure intelligence, a divine givingness. And then he says, not alone unto the great comes the soft tread of the unseen guest. He says let's see if I could read the rest of it for you. The arrogant have not perceived the simplicity of faith. The pure in heart have seen God. The farmer sees the heavenly host in the field. The child has frolicked and played in the presence. The mother has clasped him to her breast, and the fond lover has seen him in the eyes of his beloved. We look too far away to see reality. Reality with a capital R is a spiritual idea for Ernest Holmes in his writings. So not alone unto the great, meaning that it is not the great philosophers, it's not the great thinkers, it's not the saints and the sages of the world that we turn to their readings and their writings and their practices for the great wisdom of the ages. It's not just to those individuals that this presence has been there, has walked with them, has been close to them, but to you and I. That unseen guest is there, that soft tread of that presence is there, and we can learn how to tap into it. That's what that line represents. How do we access that giant inner presence, that gentle compassion, right? In other words, too often we try too hard to be spiritual. And in trying too hard, we bypass deep wisdom, and we settle for cheap answers. We settle for slick marketing. We settle for convenience and comfortable, choosing the comfortable over the necessary. My friend Christian A. Smith here in Atlanta, he recently posted from one of his talks, and he said, you can't bind diabetes in the name of Jesus if you don't change your diet. You can't pray trauma away when you won't confront it. And you can't tithe poverty away when the entire economic system was built to impoverish you. There's a term for when your spirituality detaches from reality. It's called spiritual bypass, right? And we could give a whole series. I could give a whole long series about the dangers of spiritual bypass. But the bottom line is this. We choose comfort over the necessary, to develop the capacity to listen to what we really need to do. We end up chasing dopamine through our phones and through our habits, rather than really being still and listening to what wants to emerge. And when we do that, we fail to address the fundamental need to be loved, needed, to belong, and to contribute. So what does the spiritual practice of gentleness look like? It looks like slowing, to begin with today, slowing down and turning within. Slowing down and turning within. And one of the ways I've developed a practice for this over the years is to simply begin with being, instead of the slowing down is to learn how to just be with the first reaction that I have to whatever's going on with me, right? If I'm watching the news or sports or in relationship or just moving about the day or the world or whatever, like whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. The context doesn't matter. But to just be, right? To be with your emotional reactions. Because often that's the place where we're choosing the comfortable over the necessary because we're doing that sorting and filtering thing again because our bucket is too small and we're saying, well, I don't know how to handle those emotions. I don't know how to handle those reactions. I don't know what to think about, that stuff. So I'm just not going to watch. I'm not going to tune in. I'm not going to pay attention. I'm going to filter out and then only pay attention to the things that make me feel good, only pay attention to the things that work for me, only pay attention to the things that I have the bucket for, right? Am I making sense to anybody? It's perfectly natural and human to do that, so don't worry about it. We're going to try to guide ourselves to what we can do in the midst of that to slow down. And instead of doing that, instead of choosing quickly the comfortable over the necessary, to slow down and say, well, what is this actually? What is this that I'm feeling when I see that conflict on the news, or when I hear about this political discourse, or I have this conversation in my head or in my relationships, or when I feel this fear? What's really going on, right? Whether it's through social media or news or our own observations and experiences, to just be with what is, resisting any desire to turn away, ignore, justify, defend, argue with, but to just be, and to be with it as it is. The result is a very emotional practice, and you'll find yourself courting a presence or creating a space. I kind of imagine it like it's like this, like a little cafe table or a little set of chairs, or you'd be on the rug on the floor and pillows if you want, but a little space where you're just inviting in, right, a guest. And you're just like, let me just be with this. Right? Rumi has this beautiful poem about inviting the guest, like the guest house, right? And you find yourself being with anger, with pain, with heartache. Again, not ignoring, not justifying, not defending, not turning it away, just acknowledging it, just inviting it to have a seat. Hi, how are you? If we don't, yeah, right? What would happen if we just presenced ourselves? And notice how quickly our mind wants to solve it, heal it, fix it, make it go away, pretend that it's not there, justify it, agree with it. Oh, you're right. We need to, oh my gosh, I can't believe, right? All the stuff that our mind, and just kind of begin to just, the Buddhist practice of non-attachment. But it's a little bit different, because it's not like, well, I don't care what the emotions are. It's not, but it's more like the practice of presencing. Right? It's just presencing. Just be with this. Just acknowledge it. Being with anger, being with pain, being with heartache, disgust, cynicism, sarcasm, grief, sadness, worry, doubt. Because see, here's the key. Emotions are our pathway to greater insight, to what's really happening in the law of mind and in our consciousness. Right? When I have the courage to follow those emotions where they lead, I'll discover a treasure trove, and you'll discover a treasure trove of old beliefs, of worn out ideas, of unconscious bias that have been long overdue for a thorough examination. Right? It's like opening a closet and going, oh, here's all that old stuff, right? Or a room in your attic or a box. Like, oh, wow, like I've been dragging this, like I really needed to look at this, right? And you just, then you have the opportunity. But so often we don't give ourselves permission to do this because we have a fear that, oh, I don't know where that emotion goes. I don't know where that, which is why, one of the reasons why sports is so great, right? I started talking about sports, because sports kind of gives us an outlet to do that as fans, right? The word fan comes from fanatic, and it gives us an opportunity to get really excited and really attached to the outcome and really outraged by the referee and the thing, and right, to exercise all of those things, which ultimately, in the end, don't substantively change our lives, right? And trust me, I'm a big fan, right? Like I have felt like, oh, I've got all of, everything riding on this. And then we win, and then it's like, and like I still got the laundry to do. Okay, well, great, right? Or if you lose, right? It's like, oh, well, whoa, man, that was just really disappointing and terrible and awful, and they should have, and this and that and it. And still got the laundry to do. Right? So it's great, it's fun, because it allows you to get all of those things out and participate in that. But how often we don't do that, it becomes a substitute instead of doing that with things that really matter, things that we won't sit down with and say, well, let me really follow this. I'm so attached to the outcome that it must work like this. But what if it doesn't? I'm so attached to the outcome that it must do this because so much is riding on it. But what if it doesn't? So much doubt, so much anger, so much grief, so much sadness. And what if I followed those things? If you put yourself in this type of practice, you'll be doing really the heavy lifting of this thing we call mind science or consciousness work. And what will surface in that box that you find, all of those things to be examined, are actually what your core beliefs are around those three universal needs: to be loved and wanted and needed, to belong, and to have something to contribute. And what you begin to discover is that actually everything about what this person is saying or not saying, this person is doing or not doing, or what this legislation is doing or not doing, or this devastation that's happening in the world, or that part of humanity that's being abused, or this thing that you care about, or that, right? Doesn't matter where it is, how far away it is, how big or dramatic it is, or whatever. It all comes back to what your core beliefs are around your need to feel loved, needed, and wanted, about the idea of whether you belong or not, or whether you have something to contribute, what your core beliefs are about those three things. You begin to see, by just creating that gentle giantness, just creating that capacity to sit, you go, oh, what this really has to do with is one of those three things. And you begin to get insight about that. Like, oh, wow, that's interesting. Fascinating. Since I know that I belong, and since I know that the universe created me and that I'm loved and whole and complete, right? So then you begin to bring in your spiritual practice and your spiritual faith, and it begins to shift everything. You feel that? The secret power in doing this kind of work is to love ourselves enough to do it, to know that you're capable, to have, that's why the practice today and this month is compassion. Right, to love ourselves enough, to give ourselves compassion and space to actually do the work, and to know that underneath you and underneath all that stuff that we might excavate is the universal love of God that says, I have made you. You are here on purpose. You belong to the universe in which you live, and you have a gift inside of you to give. And all of the things that you're seeing, perceiving, experiencing, wringing your hands over and worrying about and staying up late and frustrated and all the things that you're not willing to speak or to talk about or mention to anyone. And I think, right, they all come back to your knowing or not knowing, as it were, that you're loved, that you're needed, that you belong, and that you have something to give. And when you get that, everything will shift. Just in case you were wondering, that's why it's on the shirts, right? That our whole message is you belong. Ernest Holmes, in his classic work, this thing called You, says this. He says, you belong to the universe in which you live. You are one with the creative genius back of this vast array of ceaseless motion, this original flow of life. You are as much a part of it as the sun, the earth, and the air. And there's something inside of you telling you this, like a voice echoing from some mountaintop of inward vision, like a light whose origin no one has ever seen, like an impulse welling up from an invisible source. Your soul belongs to the universe. You belong to the universe in which you live, right? This is why it's so critical that we gather together, we support spiritual community like this, that we do this thing that we're doing, because if for no other reason, to be a space in the oasis of the desert of humanity that's aching right now. I don't know if you know it or not, but like the collective of humanity is aching right. We've come out of this pandemic, isolated, the younger generation, right? The rates of anxiety and depression and prescriptions and all of that stuff, it's like higher than it has ever been. There's a pandemic of depression happening in our society. And we're actually, and at the same time, right, I got pinged with an article today that came out in the Atlantic of how much people are not going to church, right? That this trend, which has been going on for decades, but they're talking now about coming out of the pandemic, how people aren't returning, but they're not replacing it with something that's giving them that sense of belonging. They're replacing it with the comfortable, not the necessary. They're replacing it with the extravagant. They're replacing it with things that are feeding that dopamine chase, but aren't really giving them, right? They're chasing it, if I were to give a diet kind of metaphor to it, they're chasing it with, sugar and all of that, but not with nutrients. So the body's not really getting what it needs, but there's a buzz happening because they're busy, right? So you and I are doing something here. In the midst of that world hurting, what we're doing matters, if for no other reason than to be a place of restoration and refreshment for our soul, so that we can get back out there and do the work that needs to be done. By simply being the presence that knows how to be that giant gentleness, that knows how to respond to, can I get big enough for this? And all the anxiety that everybody else is feeling around us, for you to be that calm presence that just knows. And pretty soon people will say, how are you able to do that? What are you doing? And you'll say, well, one of the things I do, Sunday afternoons. They'll say, Sunday afternoon? Oh, well, I'm available Sunday afternoon. I thought you were going to say Sunday morning. Oh my God, I am not doing that. Right? You'll be able to say, you have this practice in this place, in this community, because it's not just an individual practice, but it's the community that supports it, right? So my friends, I implore you to look out into the window of the wide world around us, to fix our eyes on our neighbors, and to let ourselves see what we see, and allow ourselves to be guided to who and what we really are. Your neighbors need to know now more than ever how to develop the capacity to love themselves. And they're going to do it first through the capacity that you have to love yourself, so that you can help guide them. There's a great poem as I invite the practitioners to come forward. David White, I've used it before and I just love it so much. It says, everything is waiting for you. So I invite you to take a breath. I remind you that practitioners are available for one-on-one prayer after the service. You can find them here in the sanctuary. You can make an appointment with them during the week to dive deeper into spiritual practice and your own unpacking of consciousness and what's happening. David White, the great poet, says, "Your great mistake is to act the drama as if you were alone, as if life were a progressive and cunning crime with no witnesses to the tiny hidden transgressions. To feel abandoned is to deny the intimacy of your surroundings. Surely even you at times have felt the grand array, the swelling presence, and the chorus crowding out your solo voice. You must note the way that the soap dish enables you, or the window latch grants you freedom. Alertness is the hidden discipline of familiarity. Alertness is the hidden discipline of familiarity. The stairs are your mentors of things to come. The door has always been there to frighten you and to invite you. The tiny speaker in the phone is your dream ladder to divinity. Put down your weight of aloneness and ease into the conversation. The kettle is singing even as it pours you a drink. The cooking pots have left their arrogant aloofness and seen the good in you at last. All the birds and creatures of the world are unutterably themselves. Everything is waiting for you. Everything is waiting for you. And so as we move into prayer, anchor ourselves once again with the affirmation for this month. The deep within me, there is a power, a presence like no other. Deep within me is grace, wisdom, and love. And deep within me is all that I need in this moment. And so today I call forth this presence. I stand in the midst of its giant gentleness, knowing that it is sufficient for all of my needs. This one power, this one presence, this one life, this one creative urge which is seeking to express itself through all creation is within me right here and right now. I am one with this dynamic presence, and it is one with me. It is guiding me to the fulfillment of those fundamental needs which are always met in the eternal, and now I cultivate in the ways in which I may see and feel and sense and know and act on the knowing that I am needed and loved and valued, that I belong, and that I have a valuable contribution to make to this unfoldment of this thing called life. And so too does everybody in my presence. I beam out that confidence and that assurity through all that I am, knowing that it returns to me, pressed down and overflowing in the activity of life and the interactions and the engagements and the flow of the divine that moves through me. Oh, I'm truly grateful and thankful for this. I'm grateful for this spiritual community to be a place of respite, a place of restoration and refreshment for my soul, that I may drink from the well of this water and go out once again into the world, whole, perfect, complete, filled up, fueled up, ready to meet the challenges, to be big enough for this moment, whatever this moment may be in my individual experience. And to know that I am enough, that I belong, and all is well. For this and more, I say thank you, God. Thank you, God. I release this word knowing that it's already done. And if you're in agreement with me, let's affirm together. And so it is. So we are. Peace and blessings. Good? Feel good? I feel good. Grateful for your presence today. Thank you for being a part of this community. Please tell somebody about what we're doing on Sunday afternoon. It makes a difference. I think we are making a difference. Can't wait to fellowship with you after the service. Let's take a moment for our tithes and offerings. You have a screen that will tell you a QR code and how to, I did mention the practitioners available for prayer after the service. You can text any amount through your phone right where you are, 404-800-9467. That includes everybody watching online. You can scan the QR code, or you can go to our website. If you have cash or check and you want to physically give that, we have containers by the door here. You can just walk up and do that at any time, now or during our closing song, or as you are on your way out. We're grateful for all of the gifts that we receive. We have about 130 to 140 people that give on a regular monthly basis to this community, and we're grateful for every single one of them. And if that includes you, amen. I know sometimes it can feel, right, that's like double the amount of people that attend, sometimes triple on a Sunday afternoon. So I just want you to know you're participating in something bigger than yourself and bigger than what you see. So if you're part of that ongoing giving community, we're grateful. If you want to join that, it's easy to do. Just ask us how. We'll happy to assist you with that. And if you're willing to give a little bit more, to stretch a little bit, we would gratefully receive that. We'll be talking next week at our annual meeting about how important and critical that is in this moment. But I'll just let you know now that doorway is always open, and we lovingly receive all that you have to share with us today. So let's hold that gift, whatever form it takes in our hearts today, and let us joyfully and gratefully bless it with these words. I live in a universe of abundance. As I freely and joyfully give, I join in the divine flow, and all that I share with life returns to me multiplied abundantly. And so it is, and so we are. Peace and blessings.
Thank you, Reverend David Alexander. Let's close with our closing song, shall we? Come on now. We envision a world that works for everyone and for all of creation. We see all people, all beings as expressions of God. We see a world that works for everyone.